Hey, this is Tyler with TJack Survival Dispatch. I made a ham radio video. I barneyed it down, but I need to barney it down more. I didn't barney it hard enough. Why didn't I barney it hard enough? So in this video, I'm gonna barney it harder and see if we can get some more simple explanations on how to just use your ham radio equipment. So stick with me. Alright, I'm going to grab some questions straight off the last video, and I'm going to try to do the very simplest version of ham radio that I can in this video, and then I'm going to make an advanced video with HF and some of that talk around the world stuff. So, one of the questions, ARIC, D-O-M-K-E, man, I don't even know how to say the name. It says, okay, I have my tech license, I don't care about the technical aspects as much. How do I talk now? What's a good ham radio etiquette? Can you do an explanation on that? Yeah, let's do that. So, I have multiple cameras here. I have what you're gonna call the walkie-talkie, and ham radio operators are gonna call a handy-talkie. This is a Baofeng. I've got a little box full of these because they're so cheap. And if you're getting into ham radio operators, or ham radio at all, just go get a Baofeng. They're cheap. They're like 35 bucks. Get the bigger battery on them. Do expect them to break and fall apart. They can't handle impacts. Stuff falls apart on the inside. And do immediately replace your antenna. This is a diamond antenna. It's still a little stunty, but it's better than the rubber plug that comes from Baofeng that's pretty worthless. Ideally, you want a full quarter or half wavelength 2 meter to 70 centimeter antenna. This is the same amount of wire, it's just in a coil. So it's not the best antenna, but it's better than what comes with it. And for what I use these for, it's perfect. I use these for line of sight. Maybe I'm hunting up on a hill, I want to talk to someone in the truck. Maybe we're stuck in a mud puddle and someone's using a winch to pull somebody out. I use that line of sight type stuff for this, so that works out great for me. So how do you talk on the radio? Let's start out with a very basic variation of how do you talk on the radio. First, you got to put a frequency in there. I'm going to give you a frequency. It is only good for ham radio techs. Don't use this unless you've got your basic ham radio level technician, otherwise you're talking illegally. So the frequency is 146.520. That's 146 megahertz, 520 kilohertz. That would be like turning your radio on your AM/FM car to 105.7 and then continuing to go on up to 146.52. Your AM/FM radio isn't set up to a band that high, that's why it won't go there, but it is a receiver for 2 meters, so it should work on that frequency if you could only go that high. This, however, can. So in order to make any radio work, you're going to see a button somewhere that says VFO/MR or some variation of that. VFO stands for Variable Frequency Oscillation. Way back in the day, we had that big dial that we turned on our AM/FM radio that slid the little dude across the numbers. That is a variable frequency oscillator, right? And then we just took that mechanical dial and made it into a digital thing. So figure out how to turn your radios on. I can't teach you how to turn every radio on because they're all different, but most of them, you just turn the antenna or turn the little dude right there. This is already on a frequency. I've already programmed some stuff in here. It's on the Family Radio Services frequency. So I'm going to push, I'm going to unlock it first.
Unlock.
There we go. On the Baofeng, you just hold down the secondary function button and that unlocks it. Now I want to change it to from memory mode, which it is in right now, over to frequency oscillation mode.
Frequency mode.
Frequency mode. If you've got your voice on and if it's in English, you're good to go. Now, I've already got this frequency 146.52, but if I didn't have this, I would just type in
146.520.
Now I'm on the national call all frequency. What that means is this is the 2 meter frequency that ham radio users use to talk from radio to radio simplex. Simple radio to radio communication. Got another radio here, a little bit of a step up as far as cost and quality is concerned. It's a Yaesu VX8R, and this is a Baofeng UV5R. A little bit of old radios, but this is a $500 waterproof radio when you buy it new. I bought it used because I don't like spending $500 on radios. This is a 35, not waterproof, not drop proof radio, and it works. And if I break it, I'll just get another one. So now I'm going to take a completely different radio, and I'm going to find the variable frequency oscillation button. Right here is V&M, and I just change it from bank 1 in the memory bank that I've uploaded with the computer, hit the variable frequency oscillation button, VFO 145.75. Well, I don't want to be there. I want to be 146.520. Now I've got two radios with the same frequency. This radio has a hand attachment that has a GPS receiver and a mic on it, so I can either do the PTT button right here, which is the push to talk button, or I can do it on the side of the radio. They both will work. So if I push this push to talk button right here, it should make that one key up. They're really close, so I'm getting feedback in a loop. If I stick it out the window. Test. Okay, so I know that it works. The point is, get two radios on the same frequency using the variable frequency oscillation function, and then one radio will talk to the other radio. That's the very basics of how to get them up and running. When we're going to talk about other radio types, this is a handy talkie, or if you're non-ham, you're going to call it a walkie-talkie. This guy down here on my car is a mobile radio, or just a mobile. You can put a mobile in a backpack, add a battery to it, and walk around with it as if it's a handy talkie. The value to that is these mobiles, at least this one, can go up between 25 and 50 watts. These ham radios, most of them will top out on 5 watts. So they're just not as powerful. But this one has a higher quality antenna. It is a little more powerful than some of the other radios. It's waterproof. I can put it on my belt and put this mic up here and use it while I'm walking. So there's some value to it. And this Yaesu, I can put 1,000 frequencies in it. The Baofeng will only hold 99 frequencies. I had to buy an extra dongle cable that I plug straight into a USB port, and then I use Chirp, which is the software to program the Baofeng. And I use proprietary software for the Yaesu, which has come with a CD and a dongle cable that came with it to program this one. So when you're going to buy a new radio, also buy the dongle cable, figure out what software is used. If it doesn't come with software, most radios will be able to be programmed by a software suite called Chirp, C-H-I-R-P. Other than that, you're just going to have to get in and do some Googling. So that's how we make one radio talk to the other. Let's see how we make a radio talk to a repeater. I have pre-programmed in my mobile radio here the 7/6 repeater. The frequency is 14676 with a negative 600 kilohertz, which is about half of 1 megahertz offset. And then the other bank, I have the 7/6 repeater, which is the other bank is the 6/2 repeater, 14662, and they're both on. Nobody's talking on them. Oh. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to connect with a repeater. I've already pre-programmed the listening frequency, 14676, and when I key up the microphone, because the repeater function is turned on this radio, it's going to drop by negative 600 kilohertz to the frequency of 14610. Yeah, 146.160, because 760 minus 600 is 160. Anyway, let's do this. So there are people talking on the 6.2. I had to tighten up my antenna connection. So let's try connecting to the 7.6. I keyed up. I sent something out. I woke the repeater up. And because by law we are required to use our call sign every 10 minutes, that repeater, being a remote operating station, turned itself on. And it sent out its call sign in Morse code. I think that was W7SPR or something, I'm not sure. So now if I key up, I'm just gonna see if I can get another person. Is anyone available to come back for a demonstration? Hey, thank you for calling back. I just wanted to, I'm showing a friend how to, just how to do the basics of a repeater.
Okay. Anything else I can do for you?
That's it. I appreciate the comeback. 73.
73. Okay.
So you call out, you, this is me, or me, this is you. This is my call sign. I'm looking for whomever I'm trying to talk to, or this is my call sign. I'm mobile. If they want to call back, they'll talk to me. The rule is that you have to talk, you transmit from one person to another. You can't broadcast to everyone, so there's kind of a gray area when you're trying to look for anyone to talk to. So if you call out and say QSO or my call sign, I'm mobile or something, if someone's there and they want to talk to you, they'll call back. If you call out and say, is there anyone available that can help me with something, most times someone will call back if they're listening. Then you just talk, and every 10 minutes you just throw your call sign out. You have a normal conversation, no music, no swear words. I advise you stay away from politics, but it's not restricted. But you cannot play music. The only music you can play is a rebroadcast that is coming from the space station, which is weird, but okay. And you can't sing on it, and you can't swear on it. There is FCC violations because everyone's listening, so just be respectful. Lastly, when you're done, you can say goodbye. You can say 73. Those little weird numbers and codes come from Morse code. Instead of typing out goodbye, they just type in 73. And that means I'm done, I'm out. QSL, QSO, all of those, QRZ or QRZ if you're not in the US, all of those little codes come from Morse code communications and kind of bleed over into verbal communications. They're not required, but I highly suggest you figure out what they mean. And if someone uses them, just ask them, hey, what does this mean? How does that work? And they'll tell you. Ham radio operators they have a tendency to bend over backwards to teach and to help and to bring other people in the fold and teach you information. They are considered Elmers, and that's another weird thing. I don't know where that comes from. And they will work hard to answer your questions. Also, Google is a good place to look. QRZ or QRZ.com is a great place. It's Facebook of ham radio operators that predates Facebook. It's a little bit old. There's a lot of really old technology with ham radio operators because that experimental technology fed the future stuff. As an example, there's a website called aprs.fi. That is technology from a guy whose call sign was APRS, and he helped establish the first text messaging services that went through GPS and ham radios and just repeated themselves in the state of Hawaii. They gave them the ability to text information across the islands in Hawaii, and it kind of expanded and eventually became text messaging or SMS services and cell phones and that kind of thing. All right, that's the very basics. That is simplex radio to radio. That is talking on a ham radio. If you're new, just pop on, use your call sign and say, I'm new. Who's going to talk to me? Nobody answers? Find another repeater, find another frequency, figure out where the people are. In my area, there's two main repeaters that people use a lot. There's probably 100 other repeaters in the area that you can use. The biggest thing is don't just sit there, ask questions. Someone will help you. All right, let me double check my questions here on that little reply and check the questions section of the video I made earlier. Hi, Jim. Pretty good explanation. I've been a ham for about 10 years. These are the replies on the video we made earlier. Informative, made sense, general questions. Okay, I had a question. It's from Terry Queen that says, millions of questions, but I'm not going to bombard you with them. I'll just keep watching to see if they get answered. He goes through and says he wants to talk to his son. From West Virginia down to North Carolina without anyone else listening. I can tell you how to talk. I can't tell you how to do it without listening. I can tell you how to, but it's not legal. You have to have two radios that are encrypted on the same encryption type and talking to each other. Completely illegal. The FCC doesn't allow that. And I wouldn't know where I can send you to buy something like that. So I don't even know how to answer that question. The best thing to do is to get some sort of a encrypted packet texting type of device or software on your cell phone, like Signal or whatever else. That technology changes pretty regularly. So get something on your cell phone that'll allow you to talk to him. And then if the grid down happens, talk to him in HF, get a HF frequency and a time. So you both become general ham operators, you both have parabolic high frequency antennas pointed at each other, and you both talk every Wednesday at 5 p.m., right? That's the basics of how to talk to your son in another state. Establish communication with the cell phone, make sure it works, and that you can walk out at any time and talk to each other. Your key factors are altitude of your antenna, the appropriate antenna for the appropriate frequency, and make it parabolic or a Yagi or some sort of focused beam, and then point them at each other. You'll send a message, and while he's on the cell phone, he'll say, I heard it, we're good. You can test it out a couple times, and then leave your system alone. And then when the grid goes down and something bad happens, you've got a way to talk to each other. But start out, get your technician, get your general, use HF to communicate with each other. That's my answer to that question. If that's not good enough, find a way to get encrypted apps on your phone and use those apps to talk to each other, something like Signal. Nothing's ever permanently perfect, because just like how we invent better armor, then we invent better bullets, then we invent better armor, then we invent better bullets. Someone will invent some sort of encryption, someone will hack it. Someone will invent a new one, someone will hack it. Just try to stay up on whatever the best is available to you and just use it until you've got a better option. There's a comment that said it's true that 4 gig and 5 gig are Wi-Fi, but they also represent 4G and 5G. Cell phone, kinda. 3G is still around 2G is shorthand for gigahertz, which is correct. They're not necessarily talking about the frequency, they're talking about the volume of data being transferred. And what I mean by that is cell phones won't always work. Your data isn't always being sent on the same frequency. The cell phone tower assigns a frequency to your cell phone, and then it can change. It can be in the 900 megahertz range. It can be in the 3,000 megahertz range. It can change because we have the capacity to send data on any frequency. The problem is some frequencies are built better to transmit that data than others. So just because you got a 5 gig Wi-Fi, which is what your Wi-Fi device is doing on your house, doesn't mean your cell phone's using that same frequency. Your cell phone has a bank of multiple frequencies that it can choose from within inside of a band that the cell tower will assign it to, and maybe one bank is being used for SMS, which is text messages, one bank is being used for voice traffic, one's being used for data, and maybe they're doing time slots, so your voice is only hitting every other second or every other 100th of a second, and someone else's voice is on that same frequency. The point is, it's not that simple, it's more complicated, and it's dependent upon what the cell phone tower assigns the cell phone. And anyway, without getting too technical on that one, it's just not that cut and dry. CB radios, I'm gonna hit that quick because this is kind of a long video. How do CB radios work? Well, there's 40 frequencies. They are assigned frequencies. They are in the 28 to 30 megahertz range, which is HF. Don't quote me on that 28. They might be 28 to 29. Anyway, they're below 30 megahertz in HF. There's 40 frequencies and they are assigned. So channel number 1 is always this frequency. Channel number 2 is always the next frequency. I don't have them memorized, but you can Google this. It's pretty simple. Just Google the CB frequencies. It says, is there any use for CB radios today? Absolutely yes. Semi-drivers use them pretty constantly. Off-roaders use them pretty constantly. And the reality is, if whoever you want to talk to is using one, then there's value, right? If I got one in this car and I want to talk to someone over there and I pop in on there and I chat, we're good to go. The other thing that you need to know, it says, do they have any use in AM emergency? I think he's asking, do they have any use in emergency? And this is John12345. Great name. I say yes, because any radio that has someone listening on the other line is valuable in emergency, right? If I'm on the backside of this mountain over here and I need help and I pop up on a CB radio and anyone answers that's got a cell phone, boom, right? I was gonna say boom, Bob's your uncle, but the reality is Bob's your mother's brother. So if there's someone on the other line, it's valuable. CBs are great. CBs are cheap. They're citizen band, which means You don't have to be a ham radio operator to use them. You can put one in your car right now and start using it immediately. If you do, check out channel 18 and 19. That's where the majority of the traffic is going to be. If you have another buddy that's four-wheeling with you in the mountains and you want to talk to them, drop to channel 1 or whatever and use that to communicate. They are HF. There are some really cool hacks you can do with HF, like you can attach it to an appropriate length dipole and increase the HF range increase the amplitude and turn it horizontal instead of vertically propagating, and you can talk big distances. That is not legal, but if we're in a grid down situation, it might be a mechanism that you can use to talk to people in another state if you really need to. Now, just because you can talk to them doesn't mean they can talk back. So that's another thing to think about, because just because you can push the information to them doesn't mean they can push it back to you. CB's valuable. I don't think it's as valuable as ham radio, but why not have both? Okay, says, where's a good place to purchase ham radio and equipment for it? I use the Facebook ham radio groups that are local. I like to buy stuff used, especially companies like Yaesu. I have sent this radio back to Yaesu in California twice. They've refurbished it or fixed it twice because I've used the crap out of things. They've given me new buttons. They've fixed a bunch of stuff. If you're gonna buy something cheap, Amazon, eBay. Right now, with all of the boats sitting in the harbor over in LA, I probably wouldn't get anything from out of country. I'd probably try to find it local and find it used. In Utah, we have a website called KSL.com. It's a local news station. They have a classified section on there. So KSL, Craigslist, Facebook groups that are dedicated to ham radio operators, Amazon, HRO in Colorado, which is a ham radio outlet, has been phenomenal to me as well. That's where I go to buy stuff for the most part. Again, I buy used bases, but I'll buy brand new antennas and brand new mics and those type of things because they have a tendency to break when they get a lot of overuse. Okay, I barneyed it pretty hard. Hopefully you understood all of this stuff. I'm gonna make a complicated advanced video later. Drop your questions. I'll either put them in the advanced video, I'll try to answer in the comment section, whatever I need to do. Thank you for watching.